Christopher, thank you very much. Appreciate it. We must have only the highest standards for those who work in our aviation system. I changed the Obama standards from very mediocre at best to extraordinary. You remember that. Only the highest aptitude, they have to be the highest intellect and psychologically superior people were allowed to qualify for air traffic controllers. That was not so prior to getting there. When I arrived in 2016, I made that change very early on because I always felt this was a job that, and other jobs too, but this was a job that had to be superior intelligence, and we didn't really have that, and we had it. And then when I left office and Biden took over, he changed them back to lower than ever before. I put safety first. Obama, Biden, and the Democrats put policy first. And they put politics at a level that nobody's ever seen, because this was the lowest level. Their policy was horrible, and their politics was even worse. So as you know, last week, long before the crash, I signed an executive order restoring our highest standards for air traffic controllers and other important jobs throughout the country. So it was very interesting. About a week ago, almost upon entering office, I signed something last week that was an executive order, very powerful, on restoring the highest standards of air traffic controllers and others, by the way. Then my administration will set the highest possible bar for aviation safety. We have to have our smartest people. It doesn't matter what they look like, how they speak, who they are. It matters intellect, talent, the word talent. They have to be talented, naturally talented geniuses. You can't have regular people doing that job. They won't.
It was only 2 weeks ago, but at this point it feels like 2 years, 20 years, even emotionally, that we had a president and Joe Biden who, when a disaster happened, we felt safe. We felt there would be a sufficient response. We felt like there would be accountability. We felt like it was being taken seriously. That is clearly not the case now, because Donald Trump is behind the seal of the presidency, embarrassing our country and making it so difficult for the families of the victims who lost their lives in a crash last night, even more devastated than they should have to be today. Because Donald Trump gave a press conference that is very difficult to watch in response to what was a horrific event in Washington last night. It was terrible. It is one of the worst press conferences I've ever seen Donald Trump deliver, and it is just painful. And we are going to get into it because the disgusting statements he made, they have to be called out. And we're going to start with this clip right here.
But in the warm embrace of a loving God. We do not know what led to this crash, but we have some very strong opinions and ideas, and I think we'll probably state those opinions now, because over the years I've watched as things like this happen, and they say, well, we're always investigating, and then the investigation 3 years later, they announce it. We think we have some pretty good ideas, but we'll find out how this disaster occurred, and we'll ensure that nothing like this ever happens again.
This is who we have as president now. Someone who does not care about making sure he has back straight. We already did this in a crisis during CO. Didn't care about the facts, didn't care about people's safety, didn't care about how people felt, how they would react, the chaos he would cause even more in a crisis. We're going to start stating opinions because I don't like to wait for the facts. I'm too impatient. And now he's just blabbering on. And what do you think Donald Trump's opinions on the crash were? Why do you think he thinks this accident happened, this horrific and devastating accident? I'm sure you can guess it's everyone else's fault but his, and he started right here.
This was a job that had to be superior intelligence, and we didn't really have that, and we had it. And then when I left office and Biden took over, he changed them back to lower than ever before. I put safety first. Obama, Biden, and the Democrats put policy first. And they put politics at a level that nobody's ever seen, because this was the lowest level. Their policy was horrible, and their politics was even worse. So as you know, last week, long before the crash, I signed an executive order restoring our highest standards for air traffic controllers and other important jobs throughout the country. So it was very interesting. About a week ago, almost upon entering office, I signed something last week that was an executive order, very powerful, on restoring the highest standards of air traffic controllers and others, by the way.
Blaming Joe Biden, because why not open it up with blaming Joe Biden? Still, the only thing on Donald Trump's mind is blaming someone else, finding someone else to attack, finding someone else to get angry with, finding someone else to shift the blame onto. That is all he can do. That is all that ever goes through his mind. It is sickening, and as he'd expect, it got even worse because Donald Trump decided again in a moment of crisis. People have lost their lives. People have lost their family members. There was a devastating clip shared from a local outlet in either Washington or Virginia last night of a man waiting at the airport for his wife, saying, "I hope someone's pulling her out of a river right now." How do you think that guy feels right now listening to his president say, "We're going to start stating opinions, and it's Joe Biden's fault"? Do you think that brings him any comfort? No, it's despicable, and of course Donald Trump had to get even more political with it, so he started going after Day and Pete Buttigieg. It's horrible.
You can't have regular people doing that job. They won't be able to do it. But we'll restore faith in American air travel. I'll have more to say about that. I do want to point out that various articles that appeared prior to my entering office, and here's one. The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing. And then it says FAA says people with severe disabilities are most underrepresented segment of the workforce, and they want them in, and they can be air traffic controllers. I don't think so. This was in January 14th, so that was a week before I entered office. They put a big push to put diversity into the FAA's program.
I really don't know how much worse it could get than this. I don't know how much lower he can get than this. What it reminds me of is after the horrific hurricane that ravaged North Carolina, Donald Trump went to one of the many towns affected that was still in the middle of recovering, and Donald Trump's presence as a former president at the time and actively running for president meant roads had to be shut down. There was security detail everywhere. It's causing problems in this town because Donald Trump was there and he gave his little press conference, little press briefing. And around his podium, he used the bricks from a building that had been torn to pieces, had crumbled, to make a little wall around him. That's what his staff set up for him, using a disaster for his own political stunt, is all this man knows. And to bring up Day right now, it's despicable, this man. He is the one who is wholly unqualified to be doing this job. He is the one who has no place leading up our country in any situation, not even to begin a disaster. And his anger and his political attacks have led us to a point where we are unprepared. Listen to what he had to say right here.
We will state certain opinions, however. I'm also immediately appointing an acting commissioner to the FAA, Christopher Rocheleau, a 22-year veteran of the agency, highly respected. Christopher, thank you very much. Appreciate it. We must have only the highest standards for those who work in our aviation system. I changed the Obama standards from very mediocre at best to extraordinary. You remember that. Only the highest aptitude, they have to be the highest intellect and psychologically superior people were allowed to qualify for air traffic controllers. That was not so prior to getting there. When I arrived in 2016, I made that change very early on because I always felt this was a job that, and other jobs too, but this was a job that had to be superior intelligence.
Donald Trump named an acting FAA director. Why do you think he had to do that? Well, because he fired the last one at Elon Musk's instruction, fired him, got rid of him, as he has been purging our government of people who oversee waste, fraud, abuse, mismanagement, so he can install his own people. And he's blaming Joe Biden. He's blaming DEI. Donald Trump has been making the most unqualified nominees for his cabinet. He's been appointing these people, and he's saying it's the Democratic policy. It's wokeness. What are you talking about? And one of those DI hires in Pete, Hega DUI hire, had some thoughts right here.
But I want to echo what the Transportation Secretary and you, Mr. President, said, because it pertains to the DOD as well. We will have the best and brightest in every position possible. As you said in your inaugural, it is colorblind and merit-based. The best leaders possible, whether it's flying Black Hawks and flying airplanes, leading platoons, or in government. The era of DEI is gone at the Defense Department, and we need the best and brightest, whether it's in our air traffic control, or whether it's in our generals, or whether it's throughout government. So thank you for your leadership and courage on that, sir, and we'll stand by you on it. Thank you.
He has no response other than anger and rage, fear mongering. It's gross. It's painful. It's hard. We are in a crisis, and he doesn't not bring comfort. He brings chaos, and we got 4 more years in this, and we got to call it out. People think they've voted for lower prices. They've voted for this. We got to let them know, but it's heartbreaking. It really is. And I'm going to bring as many updates as I can. I promise that one was a tough one to watch. I know I'm a little down, but that I feel sick. This is a new low. We got to call them out, and we're going to every day here. And until next time, I will see you soon.